Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our study of the book of Psalms. Today we're in Psalm 21. And this is yet another psalm of David, and here David is simply going to be rejoicing for what God has done and the way that God has answered his prayers. So let's see what's stated here in Psalm 21. Beginning in verse 1, we read, "The king shall have joy in your strength, O Lord, and in your salvation how greatly shall he rejoice. You have given him his heart's desire, and have not withheld the request of his lips. For you meet him with the blessings of goodness. You set a crown of pure gold upon his head. He asked life from you, and you gave it to him, length of days forever and ever. His glory is great in your salvation. Honor and majesty you have placed upon him. For you have made him most blessed forever. You have made him exceedingly glad in your presence. For the king trusts in the Lord, and through the mercy of the Most High he shall not be moved. Your hand will find all your enemies. Your right hand will find those who hate you. You shall make them as a fiery oven in the time of your anger. The Lord shall swallow them up in his wrath, and the fire shall devour them. Their offspring you shall destroy from the earth, and their descendants from among the sons of men. For they intended evil against you. They devised a plot which they are not able to perform. Therefore, you will make them turn their back. You will make ready your arrows on your string toward their faces. Be exalted, O Lord, in your own strength. We will sing and praise your power." Here, David is going to talk about the deliverance of God and how God has heard his prayers and come to his aid. As you look at this short psalm, there's a couple of things that are really the keynotes to what David is going to discuss here. The first is found in the first couple of verses where he talks about the fact that the Lord has given him his heart's desire. The Lord has heard the prayer that David has given, and he has answered it. Now, there are many people who will say, yes, but I prayed and my heart's desire was not given, and so therefore God must not have heard my prayer. Yet at the same time, you also have a situation where David is supposed to work in a certain way. He has to live in a certain way. He has to act in a certain way, and his desires must match God's desires. He says, "You have heard my heart's desire," and in this case, it's talking about the desire for the enemies of David to be defeated and for them not to be successful in their attacks against him. God is going to take care of that issue. He is going to watch over and protect David. He is going to take care of the problem. He has listened to his heart's desire and has not withheld the request of his lips. Sometimes our heart's desire doesn't match up with what God deems to be right or what is the right answer for a given situation. Sometimes our heart's desire is dealt with because it influences or it is influenced by the choices of others. Paul would talk about in the book of Romans that his heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel was that they might be saved. And yet many in Israel were not willing to come to God and be obedient to his will. So therefore, it wasn't the fact that God was not willing to answer Paul's desire, the desire of his heart on that occasion. It's that other individuals and their hearts influenced the response because of their own actions. But here David says God cares about what our hearts desire. James would talk about the fact that we can have our heart set on things that are wrong in James chapter 4, and in doing so, God's not going to listen to our prayers and grant us our heart's desire. So when it comes to this idea of the heart's desire, it's not just simply God says, I like you and I'll do whatever it is you want, but rather that our desires mirror his in the means of them and the purpose of them. At the end of the psalm, David is once again going to make an allusion to the strength of the Lord. In verse 1, he says, "The king shall have joy in your strength, O Lord." At the end of the psalm, in verse 13, he says, "Be exalted, O Lord, in your own strength. We will sing and praise your power." Ultimately, David knows that the means by which he is going to be brought through this struggle with his enemies is going to be by the means of the strength of God. We have to constantly be reminded that we serve a God that has strength, that is powerful, and that as such, God has the ability to interject himself into the circumstances of this world and to make adjustments, to come out on top, to make it so that his people succeed. We have the ability to go to God for help, and he has the ability to respond and the strength to do so accordingly. These are some of the things that I see in Psalm 21. I hope that they are beneficial to you. Next time we'll come back and we'll begin looking at Psalm 22. I hope you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.